Amy Peikoff is a talk radio host and a frequent guest on the show. She was critical of our segment last week about market fundamentalism and asked to come on and debate it, and obviously we're happy to have her. Amy, great to see you.
Thanks for having me back, Tucker.
Thank you. So our tax code and our regulatory schemes, every single one of them, every tax, every regulation either encourages or discourages human behavior. And since we know that strong middle-class families, independent families, are the basis of democracy and of a market economy, for that matter, why wouldn't we do what we can, within reasonable limits, to support strong middle-class families?
Well, so what you're talking about there is market intervention. And so when I watched your monologue last week, and kudos to you for starting off the year with a bang, Tucker, when I watched that, what I saw is that while you and I have a lot of overlap in terms of what are the components of a good life, what can constitute happiness, we have a different idea of values. And in particular, what I saw in your monologue, Tucker, is that your conception of value is lacking one particular aspect that the free market provides for, which is choice. Values depend on choice, and they depend on them not just because you have to exercise reason and free will to produce human values. That's kind of a separate exercise. But if you take purpose, for example, which you talked about as a component of happiness, purpose is something that if it's going to make you happy, for you to pursue a purpose in life, it's something that you choose for yourself. I mean, imagine if the government gives you a list of approved purposes. Every market intervention, the ones that you were talking about in the intro here, you know, the regulations and the tax code and everything else, are little bits of force that the government exerts to keep people from making free choices. And a value requires that you choose it, you know? That's really, I think, the fundamental difference between
what
you
you're
and
saying
me.
What you're saying is true, that all law, all regulation, all taxes, as I said in the intro to my question to you, encourage or discourage human behavior and therefore limit choice. That's their nature, okay? That's never going to change. So as long as you have a government and you're raising money to run it through the tax code, why wouldn't you self-consciously...
But here's the thing. I don't necessarily think... I'm not an anarchist, but I don't think that a government, the existence of a government in the long term, you know, once a whole lot of people agree with my ideas, you know, Rand's ideas, once that happens, you don't have to have involuntary taxation, right? What we could do is we could have a pay-for-service sort of government. And, you know, there's proposals about how to do this, but it's so far down the road, it's very
but I wonder,
right
here's the...
But it doesn't depend on force,
I was a libertarian for many years, so I know the nature of the fantasy, but I'm wondering, let me just ask you this. You dislike socialism... It seems like a fantasy right now, yes. You dislike socialism a lot, of course, and I don't think it works either. We're about to get it, that's very clear. We're going to get socialism. Ocasio-Cortez is famous for a reason, and we are acting like the Romanovs, everything's fine, and that's the reason we're about to get this system that you hate. So wouldn't it be wiser to do what's necessary to bring these forces under control to help people so that we don't get socialism? Does that make sense?
Well, I mean, so what you're saying is compromise by adding more government controls that you think are going to steer people towards making choices that are probably better for them, you know, in terms of raising good families and things like that. Is that what you have in mind?
I'm saying that any country, any government, as long as we're accepting the reality of government, and I think for the time being we can agree on that we have a government that produces a system in which healthy families are very hard to maintain is a failing system. So why wouldn't we just be real about that?
Here's the thing. So government should not be initiating force. All it should be doing is protecting people's ability to act on their own judgment and exercise their choices about how they best pursue their own happiness, living the good life. That's what it's about. Government cannot make people happy. No market system can make people happy. The iPhone cannot make someone
But it can
happy.
certainly make them very unhappy, and that's what I think our current system is doing. And I honestly think both of us will be lamenting the rise of some socialist lunatic very soon.
But also where we disagree, we disagree about that nature of value.
We're out of time. I will give you the last word, Amy.
Well, we don't have a free market right now, and that was the other point I was going to make. So not only do you and I disagree about value and choice, but we don't have a free market right now. The ills that you name are caused by government intervention.
Amy Peikoff, always game for a good conversation. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.